Namaskar all. Hello, morning. I am Sandeep Sharma and welcome back to ZYNC Podcast, Zooming in Youth Network and Careers, the podcast about the youth, especially from the Tier 2, Tier 3, the smaller towns and cities of India. In this episode, we are grateful for Mr. Sandeep Ruhela, Chief Strategy Officer of Sharda Motors, the auto-ancillary company, to yet again grace the mic and share the deep insight about strategy. So this is the second time he has accepted to be amongst us and share his immense deep insights about the role of strategy, about the industry. And he deep dive into the world of automobile industry, sharing what exactly the role of strategy is and how the industry is evolving, what are the future trends, for example, how AI, IoT, and other upcoming technologies are playing a vital role in shaping up the industry and all the roles, specifically the strategy. And he shares his insights for the youth, the ones who wants to pursue or start their career in the world of strategy. What exactly they should look at, what the different types of strategy frameworks are available. So I am really happy, and there's a really good insight shared by Sandeep in this episode. So my suggestion, my request that all of you please watch the entire episode. It's really good, and do keep watching all the episode of ZYNC Podcast, and definitely spread the word with your friends, families, and especially the ones who are starting their careers now. And do like, comment, subscribe. Thank you. Good morning, Sandeep.
Good morning. Good morning.
Welcome back to ZYNC Podcast.
Yeah, my pleasure. And I was always looking forward to come back. So
It's my pleasure, Sandeep, that you have given us this opportunity to host you once more. Really, great thanks, big thanks from all of us from ZYNC Podcast.
yeah. I mean, it's a fantastic course. So it's always good to come back. So it's my pleasure as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. Sandeep, you remember we connected first time. The first episode was sometime in month of November. That was the almost first or second episode which I connected for the ZYNC
Yeah.
podcast. And since then, I've recorded almost six or seven. And especially your particular session was very well received, and whatever the knowledge you had shared in the first episode was pretty useful. I can say that looking at the comments, the response which I got on the YouTube, I got from the LinkedIn, and really a big thanks to you for that.
Yeah. I think, it went well in terms of quality of questions you asked. So it really pushed me to prop myself hard. So I think, fantastic effort from both of us.
Wonderful. So, Sandeep, this particular episode, let's deep dive on strategy as a function, the strategy as a role, what exactly that means, right? So, a quick introduction about once more the audience pretty know you very well, that you are Chief Strategy Officer at Sharda Motors, the automobile ancillary company, and you have a great experience in not only in strategy but also in marketing, and you do a lot of guest lectures. You go to a lot of colleges, institutes, and sharing your knowledge with the youngsters. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've recently seen your other podcast where you have been talking about Mahakumbh visit. So maybe a couple of lines about your experience about Mahakumbh.
Yeah, it's a fresh one, so I would definitely love to talk about it. So I think because I am a bit into spirituality, so hearing that, okay, it's coming in 144 years, so I did not want to miss it. So I went there with a group of friends, and we did not have much expectations in terms of what kind of arrangements would be there, so we were kind of prepared for everything. So my first impression was event was marvelous the way it was organized, so we did not face any challenge there. And then the next day when we actually went and took a dip in holy rivers. So we felt that, okay, wow, it's a special experience for us. And because I'm into a bit of meditation, so I tried doing my meditations as well there, and I felt a little bit deeper connect there. So I think, for my personal being, fantastic event. And I think for a city like Prayagraj hosting 60 crore plus people, it's actually a case study in itself, like how such events should be organized and crowd management should be done. So I think fantastic experience and learnings both.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, really great, and it's wonderful to learn about your experience, Excel. I believe, apart from the couple of incidents happening, it has been pretty well smooth and pretty well organized, as we can see from the media reports as well. So, really, a big congrats to the authorities, governments involved into that big Herculean efforts, and that showcase India's ability in
Yeah.
the management, the various big events for that matter.
Right, right.
Wonderful.
Absolutely, absolutely. Kudos to them for this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, Sandeep, coming to the strategy part, right? So once we know that we talk about marketing with the students, the youngsters, everybody know the legacy marketing organization. How does that work, right? The students are able to understand what exactly the CEO, CFO, CMOs, the top level CXO structure looks like. So I believe in India we are not yet pretty aware what exactly the CSO, Chief Security Officer, does and how the placement is there between the CEO, CFO, CMO, the CXO suite for that particular matter. Who does the decision making, how the study gets evolved, and what support you get from the board of directors, the chairman. So this is something which the audience will be really interested to understand.
Yeah. I know. I think it's a fantastic question, and you're right. This role is evolving in India, not so much, let us say, in Europe and US, because this role has been there for decades there, mainly because of dynamic environment, business environment there, as well as scope of mergers and acquisition. But yes, India is also, growing in that phase now. So this role is evolving. So let me quickly, discuss top highlights of the role. So this role usually reports to CEOs, sometimes in some organizations to even a managing director as well in the companies. So the key highlights in terms of role is that, okay, if you look at today's environment, it is very dynamic. You would have been noticing post Trump coming in, how market is reacting. There will be different type of trade policies, pacts, and so this is one side of it. Other side of it is, if you look at like the industry I come from, so a lot of disruption is happening there as well in terms of electrification, different type of fuels, different type of technologies coming in. And then in such an environment, every day there are challenges. So I think this role is there to basically, first of all, highlight these challenges in a structured manner in front of leadership team, CEO, and then also create insights which can be used for preparing strategy for both purposes, growth as well as risk mitigation. So that's where this role comes in handy. And as I said, I mean, every organization is willing to grow. So
Hmm.
this growth can come organically. Organically basically means when you grow your organization using your existing resources and doing a lot of development in-house for new products or services. And the other mean of growth is actually inorganic. So for that, you evaluate strategic collaborations in the form of technology licensing, or maybe joint ventures, sometimes some kind of sales or trade agreements you do. And then, of course, if you have decent cash reserves, you can indulge yourself into acquisition as well. And that's how you grow your revenue, your market share, sometimes even profitability, right? So,
Hmm.
all
Hmm.
of these things are specialized jobs, and typically, a typical CEO or typical leadership team members may not know the nuances of how to, proceed for strategic collaboration. So this is the second aspect where this role comes in handy. The third important aspect is that now every organization is willing to establish its vision, mission, long-term, mid-term strategy. And strategy is one side of it, but the other side is execution of it. So once you have strategy on paper, then you really want to execute it. So
Yes.
for execution also, you need to convert it into meaningful initiatives and actions, and then execute it, and then also track it, right? So it involves a lot of coordination, collaboration internally, externally. And I think this is the third important aspect of the role. And fourth is basically these days, CEOs are also, involved into many things. You have to
Yes.
tackle day-to-day operations, day-to-day expectations of various stakeholders, as well as you have to keep an eye on the future as well. So that's where this role comes in handy, kind of, become a shadow board kind of a role for CEO as well. And CEO also depends a lot whenever it comes to strategy, whenever it comes
Mhm.
to inciting, problem solving. So they
Mhm.
depend on this role. The fourth aspect which you talked about was on like how it aligns with board members and all
Yeah.
that. So yeah, usually, in all the companies, board members' role is to basically guide the company for future growth while
Yeah.
they, keep an eye on current performance as well. But the basic idea is how company becomes sustainable in the long
Yes.
term in
Yeah.
terms of performance, in terms of various challenges it is facing. So this role also connects with the board of members. In some organizations, this rhythm is on quarterly basis, and then in fact, board seeks an update on the strategy every quarter. In some organizations, some of the executive board members interact with this role on monthly basis as well, in terms of trying to understand where are we moving on important aspects. So I think there is an evolution of this role which is happening, and I feel that this role is going to become more and more important with
Yeah. Yeah.
passing time.
Right. Great, great. Sandeep, and I believe that is how you are able to also collaborate as the chief strategy officer with along other CXO suite members, CFOs and CMO particularly, right? Because they are the ones who are also traditionally getting into strategy and also executing that part.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So very important aspect. Maybe I missed it. So good that you highlighted it. So yeah, earlier strategy was done by all CXO leaders, including CEOs, and I wouldn't say that it has changed now with emergence of this role. It is still there. It is just that now there is a dedicated person in the organization who kind of records everything, brings everything together. Many a times what happens, the one of the biggest reasons strategy fails is that everybody has their own strategy,
Yes.
and it's very difficult to combine all these strategic aspects into one strategy document. So that's where
Right.
I think this person comes in. And yeah, as I said, in the execution of strategy, everybody needs to play a very important role. For example, we may have a midterm strategy where we are saying that okay, we need to grow in certain market in terms of market share. So
Yeah.
for that purpose, we may have a special initiative, and for that, let us say strategy officer will collaborate with chief sales and marketing officer for that particular initiative or project. Same way, there could be a special effort. Let us say we need to improve our return on capital employed, right? So for this special effort, this role then will collaborate with CFO. CFO would be the doer, but let us say whatever strategic insights are required, this role will bring in. And that's how this role, depending upon the initiatives, projects, continues to collaborate with people across the organization.
Wonderful. So when we talk about, again, we are touching about CFO and CMO's roles. Their output deliverables are more tangible in terms of what is seen. Strategy looks like something intangible, right? It is mostly on paper. So, what is the success factor which defines, yes, the CSO delivered something?
Yeah, I think another very important aspect, and this is something which I continue to deal with. I have seen many people raising this question, not of course directly to Chief Strategy Officer, but to their other colleagues and sometimes maybe to CEOs that, okay, what is the deliverable of this role? Everything we are doing. And this person is actually highlighting what we are doing in the board meetings or let us say in executive meetings. So, what tangible this role is delivering. So yeah, there is always this challenge with this role that okay, you may not have something very tangible to showcase, and maybe more than half of this role contributes in terms of intangibles. So having said that, there are some tangibles as well. So for example, these days. If it's a public listed company, everybody is looking forward to what is company's vision, mission, and midterm, long-term plan because this is what people are able to see and then realize that okay, what is the thought process of the management of the company. So this role is instrumental in bringing that tangible out, right? That okay, this is the strategy of the company. Then board of directors are also looking at company to share the strategic update quarter on quarter, right? So while different CXOs will talk about their areas, but there has to be somebody who's talking about organization as a whole, right? So while CEO also can do it, but again, CEO has too many things to handle.
Yes, too many things
So
on the plate.
this
Yeah.
role comes in handy there as well and satisfying a lot of queries, questions of board of directors in terms of strategy. This is another tangible. I think so. There will be many more tangibles. So another could be mergers and acquisition, right? So let us say company is doing well, they have good cash reserves, and now investors are pushing that okay, you either give that money back as dividend to us, or you do something for the organization in terms of growth, so
Yes.
that our share price also increases, right? So there also, if you are able to develop a strategic joint venture, or let us say you are able to do some acquisition, so this will definitely add to the growth of the organization. So who's the person who's going to handle this initiative? It's going to be chief strategy officer, at least the process part of it. And let us say if it is an acquisition, post acquisition, you need to integrate that acquisition in your current organization. So this role would be very instrumental there as well. And after that, once it's become part of kind of your organization, then you hand it over to the business heads, or let us say whosoever is responsible to drive it on day to day basis. So I think there are many tangibles, but yes, a lot of intangibles as well. So that's where I feel that there should be some sort of on KPIs, key performance indicators, which this role should streamline and then measure and monitor on weekly or monthly basis, through which let us say if we are able to show weekly or monthly or quarterly progress in terms of what's changing, what's not changing, and therefore what should we do. So I think that is the best way to show that okay, what this role is actually delivering. So this is what I call the how to make intangibles into tangible. If you can measure it, then I'm sure you can term it as tangible.
Yeah. Yes, it is very much important as a role, and India definitely it is evolving at a faster rate. So,
Yeah.
Sandeep, there's a famous book called The Art of War by Sun Tzu, and where he famously quotes, "The strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory, and the tactics without strategy is rather the noise just before the defeat."
Right.
Right. So, how do you balance between the tactical aspects of it, the long term and short term aspects of strategy and the tactical actions?
Yeah, I think very good question. And in fact, in one of my previous company, our CEO, he was a follower of Art of War strategy. In fact, he wrote a famous book on combining his own knowledge with the Sun
Okay.
Tzu's Art of War strategy. His name is Sridhar. He was earlier in Bajaj, and then he
Okay.
joined one of my previous organization. So that's how I got introduced to this concept. And he was so vocal about it that he created a training module around this, and he himself used to coach senior leaders how to practically use this strategy. And this is what he used to say that okay, if you have a strategy, good, But if you don't have tactics, then you will fail in execution. And if you have tactics and you don't have strategy, then you are definitely preparing for loss in a war. So yeah, I do agree with that. If you have a strategy, then at least you know that, okay, beyond 1 year, how you are going to grow, how you are going to tackle the challenges, how you are going to compete against competition, and how you are going to prepare a sustainable growth path. But it always comes to execution. For execution, you need tactics. Tactics is nothing but how do you basically break down your, let us say, midterm, long-term strategic initiatives into practically, executable actions which you can do on daily basis, right? So it is, I think, tactics which a lot of functions actually depend upon. While strategy is at corporate level, strategy is at broad business level, but to execute that strategy on the ground, let us say there is a sales team and they are fighting with their competition in that particular territory. So of course, there he cannot show that strategy paper to tackle that competition. He has to basically convert it into tactics, and then he has to see that whether those tactics are aligned with my company's strategy or not, and that's how basically he has to deal with it on day-to-day basis. Otherwise, of course, I mean, it becomes very difficult that everybody is saying that, okay, we have a strategy, but when it comes to execute it on the ground, we really do not know. So I think that's where this breaking down of long-term, mid-term initiatives into annual initiatives, and
Yeah.
then annual initiatives needs to be broken down into quarterly, monthly, and weekly actions, and then those actions needs to be executed and monitored. So that's how you create this linkage between long term or mid term strategy to, let us say, short term goals.
Okay. Now we've just about touched upon a famous quote. I'm just getting reminded of another famous quote from Peter Drucker. Right? He said, "The culture eats strategy for the breakfast." Right? And since we are talking about the execution, the tactical aspects, as well as strategy, so where does this aspect fit, which Peter Drucker said, correlating culture and the strategy?
Yeah. I mean, I did read about it during my MBA days, and then after that, many people, especially CEOs, keep talking about it.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I'm pretty familiar with this quote, and I think pretty well framed as well, because in organizations, if you don't have culture, right culture, conducive culture, then you cannot execute your strategy. I mean, just to give you an example for that, in one of my previous organizations, we always had a strategy paper, but then when it comes to, let us say, execution of that strategy, every leader was doing their own stuff, and that strategy everybody was making once in a year. But even in internal reviews, nobody was really talking about those initiatives. Everybody was talking about output KPIs, which is market share, which is revenue growth, EBITDA growth, and maybe some other financial parameters. So it's the internal culture of the organization that, okay, you have created a strategy paper. You want to basically, create environment for not just short-term business goals, but also mid-term and long-term strategy as well. But in your internal reviews, you are never asking about what's happening on those initiatives, which is beyond your quarterly or monthly financial
Yeah.
numbers. So this is just one example of how culture can impact strategy. Same way, there is another example which I can give. Okay, you may be talking about innovation in your organization, and for innovation, you need to allocate certain funds without any expectation of return. This is one aspect,
Yeah.
but other aspect is also attracting good talent, which is, full of, let us say, innovative mindset, design thinking, and these people then need to be given certain kind of an environment. But let us say an organization, they are focusing on creating IPs, they are focusing on innovation, but they haven't got the right people, right? So, and then if in case they have got, then they are not able to retain those people. So this comes in like the employee culture. So you have a strategy, but you do not know how to create conducive environment so that these people are there and then able to retain them. And otherwise, you will lose these people. And this is what happens. People talk about we are launching an innovation lab. They hire people, and after 1 year, you see that okay, that room is vacant. In
It's
one
not
of my
used.
previous organization, in the first attempt, this is what happened: that they created a fantastic innovation lab,
Yeah.
hired some people, and after that it was closed for
Mm,
2 years. And
mm,
then a new CEO came, and then he again initiated this effort, but this time it was right. And then we were able to retain these people, and then some useful innovation came out of this effort. So I think, yes, I do agree with Mr. Tucker that if you don't have right culture, then strategy is definitely going to go for a toss.
wonderful. Sandeep, now coming to the industry trends, now the specifically the India market where the audience will be easily able to relate to, and of course we do have the competition coming from the various global players as well. Um, can we look at the Indian automobile sector, for example, the bigger players like Tata's, Mahindra's, the Maruti Suzuki, specifically on the automobile sector? So, how do you see their strategy vis-a-vis the current business environment and maybe some sort of insights toward their strategy?
Yeah, so let's first look at what's the current environment is like in Indian automobile industry. So I think in last 5 7 years, industry progressed really well in terms of regulations. I'm talking about emission regulations. So this is one strategic shift which happened. Then electrification. It's also growing in all segments, not just passenger vehicles, but also three-wheeler, two-wheeler segment as well. Other than that, I think a lot of smartphoneification of cars. This is what I call it. We have a smartphone now. Cars are also becoming like a smartphone. Other than this, now I mean customers are also shifting to bigger cars. I mean they are ready to spend a lot of money on features, and then of course there is a lot of focus on not just product electrification, but I would say that a lot of effort on sustainability in the way you operate, in terms of your factories, in terms of how much carbon emissions you are doing, how much waste you are creating. So I think broadly these are the 4 or 5. I would say strategic shift or trends which we have seen last 5 6 years or maybe more than that. Now, coming to how some of the companies in India are actually tackling it. So, let's talk
Mm-hmm.
about Tata Motors. Of course, my views are as an external observer. So, whatever
Absolutely.
I read
Yeah.
about the company.
Publicly
So,
available information. Yeah.
yeah. So I think Tata Motors has done pretty well. If you really look at last more than 5 years, I think it was an ailing company, not able to make any profit at all. But they did a huge turnaround in their commercial vehicle business, in their passenger vehicle business, as well as their global business when they acquired Jaguar. And they had a good run. I'm not talking about last 5 6 months. I
Yeah.
think their share price has come down again. It reflects maybe performances eroding a bit. But otherwise, if you really look at mid to long term scenario, they have done pretty well. And it has happened because of two, three things. One, they were able to do this turnaround in their manufacturing strategy. Second, I think probably first company to ride this trend of electrification, and they came back with
Yeah.
many products, and people also loved it. And some of the cars, I mean, these are unheard things about Indian OEMs. Like one of their car recently, I think, became number one selling model in terms of volume, beating Maruti Suzuki. So I
Yeah.
think that scale is also coming. And other than that, I think they deployed a lot of digital transformation in their factories, the way they operate, the way they work.
Mhm.
So I think these are some of the things Tata Motors did. Now, talking about Mahindra, another great Indian company, the way they are growing. And in fact, their growth was little after Tata Motors in terms of numbers, share price growth, and everything. But the recent month's performance is
Yeah.
much better. In fact, I was visiting this Bharat Mobility. Maximum crowd was at their stall for
Yeah.
some reason. not for some reason, but they're new cars, the
New car.
electric
Yeah. Yeah.
cars.
Yeah.
Fantastic design and fantastic features, and I think segment best pricing. So I think this is what they are actually consistently doing. So they picked up SUV segment. They knew that, okay, maybe in other segments we are not going to do so well. So picked up one segment SUV, and then they created certain benchmarks there in terms of product, in terms of pricing, in terms of how this should be, marketed as well. So I think SUV was their focus, and now they are shifting to electric as well. And then I think huge improvement in the way they are designing their vehicles and the way
Mm.
they are integrating, softwares in these vehicles. This is one area. Second area I feel is that the improvements in manufacturing. So I
Mm.
read somewhere that, okay, Mahindra is one company which is investing the maximum dollars in shop floor improvements in terms
Mm.
of digitization, in terms of manufacturing 4.0. These are things which are pretty unheard of about Indian companies, right? And then they also innovated the way automobile marketing should be done. They created this
Yeah.
concept of, car bookings, and they started talking about, okay, we have done 10,000 crore worth of car bookings, which we will
Bookings.
deliver in next few months, or let us say more than a
Mm.
year. In fact, a few days back, I was reading about these electric cars as well, about which they talked that, okay, they have 8,000 crore worth of bookings of cars. I mean, these are pretty unheard of things. Now, coming to Maruti Suzuki, which has been like a leader for decades, but
Yeah.
now they are facing some heat in
Mm.
last few quarters, and that's where they are losing little bit of their market share as well. I
And they
think,
have been a bit of cautious when it comes to EVs approach, because Tata took the lead there and quickly followed by Mahindra's, and Maruti said, okay, we'll observe the trend and probably then they will
yeah,
start.
I think you're pretty right about it. So, Maruti Suzuki, usually, I mean, Japanese companies are little, cautious about new technologies, new trends. It is not that it is Maruti Suzuki's style; it is Japanese
Hmm.
style. This is
Okay.
what I have observed,
Okay.
right? So they basically see what's happening globally, and they let the trend unfold. Once they
Evolve.
realize that, okay, this trend is definitely there for sure, then they start talking about it. So I think this is what Maruti Suzuki has also done. And if you really look at Maruti Suzuki's strategy, they were focused on small cars and fuel efficiency, considering Indian consumers at that time required it. But as I was saying, in last 5 7 years, because of Indian middle class, upper middle class, now they have purchasing power, capacity to invest in 15 plus lakh, 20 plus lakh cars, and that's where Maruti fails. They don't have, good cars beyond, let us say, 15 plus lakh, right? So that's where they collaborated with Toyota as well. But I think it will take some time. So I think they were focused on bottom of the pyramid in car market. This was the specific thing about their strategy. And then, as you mentioned, pretty cautious about new trends. While
Yeah.
other players could be bringing half a dozen models by 2030, they are only going to bring three or four. But I recently heard their, I think, vice chairman or the Japanese head, he was talking about becoming number one in electric vehicles in India in terms of production, sale, as well as exports. So just because of sheer volume of market share they have, 40% plus, even if they launch one or two or three models, chances are
Yeah.
they may reach that
Quickly. Yeah.
milestone. But in terms of thought leadership, they are definitely not there in
Mm.
electrics.
Mm.
I think they are going to focus more on multi fuel strategy. Like, okay,
Okay.
they will have hybrids, they will have ICE, they will have flex fuels, and they will also have electrics.
Okay. Now we have also the global player like Tesla, which created excitement that they may establish a factory in India, and almost all the states were wooing Tesla. Elon Musk, that okay, my state is much better, right? And then this thing probably is evolving that they might open a showroom with the imported cars. And on the other hand, we have the China's bigger player like BYD, also trying to establish their presence. And I can see a lot of their cars on Indian roads as well. So, what do you think about these two?
Yeah, I think Tesla is that one company which disrupted the automobile vehicle. They thought cars as, first of all, non-polluting vehicles, and then they also thought like smartphones. They made cars smartphones. They changed the game by completely rethinking the way manufacturing is also done. All those giga casting, they talked about, right? What Tesla did, what Elon Musk did, he basically attracted a lot of talent, software side, hardware side, and even manufacturing side. And he pushed them to think differently, like how cars can be thought as a different concept altogether. So this is what started with Tesla, and I think China picked up this Tesla trend and they took it to the next level.
Next
I
one.
was looking at China's car export numbers of last 4 or 5 years, and my mind was like, my God, I mean,
Yeah.
what are they doing? They have
Yeah.
picked up this industry. Every car requires more than 5,000 plus components to be combined together, and that's what Europeans and Japanese mastered. And everybody said that, okay, China may face a lot of difficulties in combining so many components and still have the reliability and quality like Europeans and Japanese cars.
Mhm.
But they changed the game. They told that, okay, we are going to focus only on EVs. EVs require batteries, EV requires less components,
Yeah.
and let us focus there. So if you look at BYD is a finest example what came out of Chinese car manufacturing strategy. So, and in fact, they have already beaten some of the European countries in car exports. They are doing more car exports than, let us say, US, China, US, Europe. And I think either they have overtaken or they are about to overtake Japan as well.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's a fantastic progress. So, all of these different new concepts of cars are bound to come in India as well. And I think so far Indian government has been having protectionist measures around these new car companies. But after recent visit of Mr. Modi, I feel that we heard that, okay, Tesla is finally hiring in India.
Yeah.
And while we are talking, I think they have already opened up a showroom in Mumbai, and the second one is coming in Delhi,
Okay.
Aero City. So I feel that Indian OEMs are going to face little bit heat, but I think that's where I feel, because these cars are going to be costly, maybe
Yeah.
40, 50 lakh plus, both Teslas and BYD, maybe a little cheaper, but again, it will be on the higher side. So I think Indian OEMs have good opportunity to create a segment which is competitive in price while it is still electric. So
Yeah.
it will promote electrics in India in a big way, but I think sales volume leadership can be achieved by Indian OEMs. So that's how I look at it.
Okay. All right. So now, coming back to your specific sector, auto ancillary companies, which are so, how do you see the shift or the changes happening because of the larger changes in the strategy of Indian automobile players, particularly?
Yeah, so see, auto ancillaries completely follow their customers.
Mm.
If OEMs are shifting to new technologies, we don't
Mm.
have a choice. If OEMs are shifting to, let us say, software defined vehicles, we don't have a choice. Of course, there are different type of auto ancillaries. Some focus on, let us say, sheet metal components. Some focus on forging. Some focus on, let us say, electric components. Some focus on electricals, electronics, semiconductors. Some focus on different type of components. So everybody in their own areas actually have to follow what OEMs are following. And what I feel, the way cars are getting defined as software defined vehicles, and that's where I think more revenue growth will happen profitability also would be there. So companies which auto ancillary companies which are traditionally focusing on components which are only, let us say, metals, materials, so their growth may slow down, their margins may, deteriorate a bit, and companies which are focusing on electrics, batteries, ECUs, uh, features, software defined features like ADAS, Advanced Driving Assistance System.
Yeah.
So these companies will have better revenue growth. They will have better margin profiles. And of course, looks like they would be doing better in share market as well. Considering whatever is futuristic, that's where investors' money flow in. So I think there are different companies, so they are going to deploy different strategies, and what choices they make today, this will define which company will survive, will be profitable, and will be darling of investors on the Wall Street.
Wonderful. And now coming to this other part of it, strategic execution, the vision to action, the short-term profitability versus long-term vision. So how the balance is maintained between the two?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic question that comes in. Like, there are some CEOs who are very strategic, and they always prefer midterm and long-term growth of the company, and they don't, let us say, prioritize too much of short-term performance. But there is always huge pressure of investors, stakeholders, that okay, company has to do well in the short term as well, because if you are able to generate those dollars in the short term, that only you are going to invest in your midterm and long term strategy. So there has to be balance, that okay, company is doing well in short term, and then they are doing well in midterm and long term. I think that's where this role of chief strategy officer comes in handy. Earlier, CEOs are either focused on short term or long term, and maintaining balance is very difficult, right? So that's where this role comes in. This role basically, create some initiatives for short term, and those are measured, those are executed, and then there is like 50-60% of the bandwidth of this role which is there on midterm long term initiatives, and those initiatives are also then made part of KRAs, or performance management system of leadership team. And some organizations put now they have split performance management into two components, that okay, your 70% of weightage is on, let us say, short term performance, like okay, whatever revenue growth, market share growth, or EBITDA growth you were supposed to bring, okay, take 70% weightage for that, and 30% weightage is on initiatives which you are going to deliver, let us say, in the second, third, or fourth year. And they break down, as I said, the role of chief strategy officer is to break down long term strategy into short term strategy, short term initiatives, at least breaking it down into quarter. So you can always measure that, okay, while it is a 3 year initiative, but 1 year milestone of this was this, and whether you have achieved it or not. And 30% of your weightage is aligned with that. So that's how you can create balance. But one is performance management system, and other is like this, what this role brings in. If for some organizations who do not have this role, chief strategy officer, and if they are struggling with this issue, then they should definitely hire this role, create a small team which can then help in bringing this balance. That's how I get people like me get more job opportunities also.
Wonderful. Sandeep, now we also have, you talked about sustainability as well. And in the India automobile sector, we have the Bharat stage. I believe it is six, which is going on as
Right
of
now,
now,
yeah, it's
right?
six.
So, how those government compliance and all these aspects impacts auto ancillary or the automobile companies or a sector as such?
Yeah, so it just does not affect these two stakeholders. I think customers are at the receiving end, because any new technology which is coming because of regulation, it is only increasing the pricings of the cars.
Yeah.
I mean, because my previous experience is in tractor industry, so I remember the one of the last regulation there, which increased the prices of the tractor by 1 lakh rupees, which
Okay.
could be 15 to 20% hike in one shot in the price. So imagine how it is going to impact the buyer. And
Yeah.
same is true for cars as well. While because of these regulations, you are making cars more cleaner, you're trying to make environment more sustainable, and you look at Delhi, the environment in terms of air
Definitely
pollution we are
requires.
facing. This is a huge challenge, and
Yeah.
35% of it is being contributed by automobiles, right? So that's
Automotive.
where I think government is putting in these stringent regulations, and these will continue to get more and more stringent. While recently we had Bharat Stage 6 implemented in India, now BS7 is also going to come, because in Europe Euro 7 has already come and India follows Euro standards. So I
Okay.
expect maybe next 2 3 years we may have BS7. So this
Mhm.
technology will further become more complicated, and prices of cars will further increase. Now, how OEMs and ancillaries handle it? So some of the Indian companies have developed good capabilities to tackle emission norms, but there are still some technologies which they are not able to develop. So for that, they depend upon global technology players. This is one. Second, they can do some meaningful joint ventures or technology licensing things, and they can get these technologies easily. Same is true for auto ancillaries as well.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
some of the companies, global companies, are present in India, and they are ready. They are almost ready with next emission norms. Solutions as well, which is like Bharat Stage 7, and then even hydrogen is going to be used as a fuel. So for that also, the emission technology is almost ready, and that's where my current company, comes in. We are also a emission technology player. Probably we are the only Indian company who has such capability, and we are also ready with all sort of
Got it.
technologies. So I
Got it.
think you have to either develop it on your own, or you have to do some partnerships. That's how you do
Mm.
it.
Okay, great. Now, you just touched upon the various aspects the different companies should be doing, and that makes me think about that in India, typically, we see a lot of family-run businesses, right?
Yeah.
First of all, how they get used to this strategy as compared to whatever is the competition they're facing from the global sectors as well as the more professionally led organizations within India as well. And secondly, how do you think? Because on the other hand, we have this fight between the MNC or the family-run business, and on the other hand, we see a lot of startups as well coming up, which pivot quickly, they fail fast and pivot quickly, right? So how these shifts are making the family-run business to really transform themselves?
Yeah, so I think auto ancillaries as a business, yeah, this is mostly family run,
Mm-hmm.
and so you pick this up right. That and there are some challenges in family run businesses. While some of the family run businesses are doing very very well, some of the family businesses are also transforming to professional or institutional way of doing
Mm-hmm.
business, but still there are more than 1000 plus tier 1 and tier 2 or tier 3 companies, and I would say that more than 50-60% of it could be family run. So challenges, because one entrepreneur had this vision view with which they started their business. It's not mandatory that the next generations also would have similar vision, similar view, similar capability, similar interest, right? So that's where these companies then start to struggle as well.
Okay.
um, and succession planning becomes a big issue. So
Mm-hmm.
if the next generation is not interested in business, then how do they you know grow? Then same way, if second generation is not that capable, but still you have to appoint that family member
Family.
at CEO position or MD position, that's where again company starts to struggle. And then if you have a large family, then you put all the family members in important positions, which are very professional positions like CFO position or CEO position or sales and marketing head position. All of these are very important professional positions. So this is another challenge, family run companies face. So these companies, family run businesses, they have to create such an structure where they have family members at important positions, but they also have professionals as well, so that they can always manage all these sort of uncertainties. This is one. Second thing is, I think everybody should look at professionalizing the business. uh, if they have more family members, they can start more businesses, right? And then
Yeah.
each family member, one or two of each member can be in these different businesses. Then they get opportunity to bring more professionals
Yeah.
in the business. You talked
Instead
about
of
strategy as a role in family run businesses. So I would say that now even entrepreneurs or family businesses owners, they're also realizing the value that, okay, if they really want to grow in auto ancillary, they need to collaborate in terms of technology, in terms of joint ventures, in terms of acquisition. Even the smaller of the companies now, I'm hearing either they are engaging independent strategy consultants or they are ready to hire strategy professionals,
okay.
so that they can also professionally grow. I think this will change very fast because demand from OEMs is that you have to have your 5-year strategy plan, you have to have your 5-year business plan, and then they also are ready to engage with you if you have more professional team. So I think this is on family run business. Now the second point on startups, you talked about they have this philosophy of do fast, fail fast, experiment
Yeah.
fast and fail fast, and then again you redo it. So I think in doing certain experiments and then failing and then again redoing require certain kind of an capital investment, right? While large startups, they are funded well
Yeah.
through PE funds or VC funds,
Yeah.
and they can afford to do it, right? But I would say that in auto ancillaries or even in large companies, failure is not that much appreciated,
Hmm.
because
Okay.
let us say you are producing certain component. If you fail in quality or reliability, your business is gone, right?
Hmm.
So I would say that in that aspect, you cannot implement this same philosophy apple to apple. But
Mhm.
yes, if it is coming to innovating new products, uh, or let us say in a section of R&D where you are experimenting with new technologies, new products, you can definitely deploy the startup mentality, and maybe you would be able to innovate or develop some products or services quicker.
Okay, great. So, Sandeep, you touched upon what you call earlier as a smartphoneization of the cars, especially EVs,
Yes.
right? We do have the latest technologies coming up, and AI is like advancing every single day into the next, giving the challenge to everyone. Right. So, where do you see and how do you see the Indian companies, especially in these two sectors, gearing up for AIT? You have IoT, and now we also started hearing about the quantum computing, which of course is some distance away from the practical usage. But again, AI is very much there, and almost all the aspects. IoT is probably getting utilized because of multiple sensors being put everywhere in the car. Right. So, how do you see these technologies changing the landscape?
Yeah, so I think we are hearing a lot of AI in everywhere. So automobile industry is not something different. They are also exploring use cases of AI. While we are talking, I keep hearing that, okay, OEMs are using AI on the shop floor for predictive maintenance, or they are also predicting, they're also identifying any possible quality issues using AI. Then people are using AI for giving better service to customers, like they are
Mhm.
trying to replace the customer contact centers using this in car service also. AI is being used to create chatbots where, let us say, different dealerships personnel can get trained, or let us say can ask their queries and they get immediate results. So I think there, and then of course, IoTization of shop floors as well. They're putting a lot of sensors, cameras, and then each possible information is gathered. Now there
Mhm.
is this trend of traceability. You have to basically trace each and every component when it is coming from, let us say, somebody who's producing this as a material to somebody who's processing it, tier 2, tier 1 to now, then OEM to customer. Even blockchain technology is very handy there, that, okay, you can trace all the components. So I see a lot of application of it. People are using it in the shop floors, which is manufacturing and operations. People are using it in sourcing, supply chain. People are using it in front end sales and marketing. People are extensively using it in customer service as well.
Now, you've talked a lot about automobile and auto ancillary industry. Now, if you look at some other industry where which are consumer phase, for example, like FMCG, and there's a lot of traction in India in IT, right? So, how do you see these things, tech-driven or the product-driven technologies, impacting the strategy and vice versa?
See, I mean, IT industry is a little different. I think the pace of innovation is different. Product life cycles are shorter there, right? So I think whosoever is doing strategy there, so their job is very, very difficult. They have to be extremely agile. And in this industry, you have n number of players, right? You have giants like Google, Apple, even IBM, right? And Nvidia. And then you have Indian companies like TCS, Infosys, Wipro, right? So, and you're competing with everyone everywhere, right? So I think there is a huge fight of grabbing business there. So I think strategy has to be very, very different there. It has to be
Mhm.
agile. It has to be extremely, reactive. Somebody
Mhm.
has done something, you have to immediately change your strategy, right? So this is one aspect. Other aspect is like automobile industry. You're not fighting for smaller so many customers. So you're fighting for fewer customers, and your focus has to be on building long-term strategic relationship. One example which I can give you is that in my previous company, Kubota, which is a manufacturing company,
Mhm.
tractors, construction equipments, all that. Accenture developed a joint venture with Kubota in Japan
Okay.
to do digital transformation in Kubota, right? So I
Okay.
think this is a meaningful strategic partnership, and in this way they will have this customer's account for a very long period of time.
Yeah.
So strategy is completely different, where supplier and customer are collaborating together, right? So I think that's how strategy will change in IT industry.
Okay, great. So FMCG companies like Unilever, ITC, you see they invest a lot in the rural markets. And probably a month back, I was driving in the interiors of Maharashtra, and I saw a great rush in the showrooms of the automobiles, like Tata, Honda, and I was really happy that okay, rural market is still quite attracting a lot of consumers, right? So how do you see your strategy or place in automobile sector or auto ancillary sector for winning the rural market specifically?
I mean, FMCGs have been in rural markets for decades, and
Yeah.
now because consumption is growing there, disposable income is growing there, so that's why these FMCG companies are also increasing their penetration in rural markets.
Yep.
Now, if you really talk about automobiles, two wheelers, I think two wheelers are selling more in rural markets. So two wheeler penetration is pretty good in rural markets. But talking about four wheeler, so I think Maruti's cars, because these are smaller and affordable cars, so they have a lot of penetration in rural markets as well. So I think strategy more or less in rural has to be similar, that you have to first of all offer affordable product, and then you have to have various customer contact centers, because distances are huge in rural, and whosoever is able to provide service either at doorstep, or let us say your dealerships are at showrooms are at frequent locations, then the same thing will work for them as well in rural. So I think Indian automobile companies, at least most of the Indian companies are already there. Mahindra gets a huge chunk of business for automobiles from rural, because they are already having a business of for machinery in rural, so they also understand this business pretty well. In fact, one of the reason of Mahindra doing well in SUV is also rural market, because low end of their SUVs like Boleros and Scorpios, these are selling more in rural areas. So
Yeah.
I think yes, Indian automobile industries are doing pretty well. Now talking about auto ancillaries, I would say that auto ancillaries are B2B, right? So they mostly have to set up their businesses where their OEMs have factories. So I would say that directly rural markets may not have any impact on the strategy of auto ancillaries.
Mhm.
Only one thing is that if OEMs are trying to get more and more into rural sector, then they have to create affordable products, and then same way similar components needs to be manufactured by auto ancillaries as well. So I think that is the only linkage I see in the strategy of auto ancillaries when you really talk about penetration in rural market.
Okay. So, what is the role of data analytics? I probably can see that FMCG companies, the retail companies specifically, will be using a lot of data analytics, consumer insights to place their product, right? And how it is being utilized by your sector specifically. And maybe in the second part of this question, I would like to maybe if you can give further insights, what sort of data analytics is utilized, how it is done.
Yeah, so yeah, of course, FMCG companies, retail companies, my understanding is they are selling to so many customers that
Yeah,
every customer's data they are recording, right? So the amount of data is very large. Rather, this is like a big data, right?
yeah,
Now, and they're competing. They're competing. Every product category of theirs will have several competitors, right? So they need to really analyze this data, convert it into meaningful insight. That meaningful insight, then they need to pass back to, let us say, their sales team, their product team, their marketing team, so that they can convert it into meaningful tactics, which then can help them grow their sale. And I think these days there are data analytics models. A lot of data is stored in cloud, so this data is directly accessible to these data analytics tools like Big Hadoop and BI. Now, all of these, like Salesforce has their own BI, Microsoft has their own BI, Google has
yeah.
their own BI. That's how people, convert it into analytics and meaningful insights. Now, talking about automobile companies and auto ancillaries, I think we have a huge use case in manufacturing, because we are also combining so many components which we are
Yeah.
receiving from so many different suppliers. As I said, now there is a traceability thing which you need to manage, right? And then these products are going in the open market. These products may face some issues. You again need to then track back, okay, which car had what issues, what components, and this component came from which supplier, which batch, and everything. You can do all of these things if you have data available. How quickly companies are able to analyze this data and create problem solving models, and then, let us say, implement the solution quickly, will define their success. So that's where I see huge use case of data analytics. And in fact, while we are talking, many companies are already using it.
Mhm.
Since I am in an auto ancillary right now, and while auto ancillary, I do not know about large companies. Mid-sized companies, they may not be using data analytics in the same way, because right now they are shifting to newer version of ERPs like SAP HANA and all that. So once they move to better ERPs, only then in the second phase or stage they will deploy new tools of data analytics
Yes.
as well. And by default these days, ERPs and various applications are coming on cloud. So once everything is available on cloud, so data at least is there in one place, right? So it's easier to, I think, so I would say that backend is ready for even for auto ancillaries. It is just that we have to now use the front end and really learn how to make insights out of it and use it in strategy.
Great. Now, Sandeep, my favorite question was since I am from supply chain, I always touch upon that aspect. So, how, as a CSO, you are passionate about, or what component of supply chain impacts your strategy when you are putting a strategy for your organization?
See, as I said, so we don't have much of logistics because we don't
Mm,
have many customers. So I think
mm,
logistics part of supply chain is out for us. But yes, sourcing. We may have more than 500 suppliers from whom
mm,
we are sourcing various components. And usually a lot of pressure from OEMs is being put on tier ones that, okay, you improve your cost structure. And all the auto ancillaries companies who are pretty good in managing their cost, the chances are they will have double digit margins. Otherwise,
mhm,
debt levels and
mm,
single digit margin. This is the norm in auto
mm,
ancillary, right?
mm,
So I think sourcing is a big driver there because 70-80% of your cost is raw material, right? How
mhm.
efficiently you source it, how efficiently you do the price indexations, zero based costing, how efficiently you are able to negotiate your contracts with
Yeah.
all the suppliers, how efficiently you are able to interact with these people for quality, reliability, defect related issues. I think that's where we first of all are evaluating that, okay, how to create a best in class sourcing organization
Mm.
for auto ancillaries. Second thing is how do we use technology? Like, for
Yes.
example, how do we use digitization? How do we use collaboration platforms with vendors where we can pass on the data, quickly? And then we are also, looking at our sourcing strategy. Okay, how do we, segregate our strategic suppliers from day-to-day suppliers? For
Yeah.
strategic suppliers, you need to have risk mitigation strategy, right? And you also need to look at how to add alternate vendors wherever you're facing cost pressures. So I think there is a huge amount of strategy involved in supply chain, especially sourcing, as far as auto ancillaries are concerned. And I would say that, except barring maybe top companies, most of the auto ancillaries are pretty rudimentary or doing it in a legacy way. So
Oh,
that's where I see a huge uh, you know space for improvements.
okay. So, what one thing you would tell if you are 25-year-old, go back into the time age, right? Time machine. So, what one thing you would like to tell yourself as a 25-year-old into strategy? Sandeep?
Wow. I mean, I have to really think about it. Um, See, I mean, what I have learned over a period of time that, okay,
Mm,
strategy is one thing, tactics is another thing, and
yeah.
then third thing is execution, right? You have to combine these three things together to get successful in your strategy.
Mm,
As a 25-year-old, first of all, I really never understood difference between strategy and tactics, and then how strategy fails when it comes to execution. So I wish if I knew this as a 25-year-old, I would have done a lot of improvement in a lot of my work, which I would have done and I have failed. So I think this one message, that difference in strategy, tactics, and execution, and how to balance all these three for a successful outcome. This is something which I would
mm,
definitely want myself to learn if I, turn back time, become a
mm.
25-year-old. And in fact, this is what I would like to advise as well to all 25-year-old people.
Wonderful. Sandeep, you know that my podcast aim is to connect with the audience, which are youth and which are also coming from the rural areas, tier two, tier three cities and towns, right? The smaller cities. So, how do you see their role, or they come taking up the strategy roles or contributing positively to Indian markets, or maybe going to the global players?
See, I understand. In fact, I on weekends try to interact with students by taking
Right.
some guest lectures,
Yeah.
guest sessions. This I do out of passion and my responsibility. So what I feel, students, they really know about strategy. They know that okay, big four like McKinsey,
Okay.
BCG, Deloitte, these organizations hire for strategy roles, and they also know about strategy is now getting as a role getting space in sales, marketing, even supply chain. So they are aware of the roles,
Okay.
right? But if they really want to build a career in strategy roles, so as I was just saying, that strategy, tactics, and execution. So I think this is what they have to learn. And along with it, there are certain skill sets which they have to develop. For example, data analytics and insighting. For a strategy professional, it is very important to analyze the data and then build meaningful insights out of it. Without this, you cannot make any strategy at all. Second skill set, which I feel is basically so once you have done data analytic, problem solving. So what is strategy? In strategy, either you are solving some challenges or some problems which business is facing.
Yeah.
So there are some special problem solving models. If you really know how to use those frameworks and meaningfully solve problems, and then suggest to various senior people that okay, that's how this problem can be solved, then the skill set would be very handy. Third thing, which is very important for young strategy professional, is communication and articulation. Because you are solving complex problems, you may be generating a lot of insights, but if you are not able to communicate it well, articulate it well to senior people, then chances are they may not be able to understand what you are
Mhm.
saying, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be very, very refined in your thought process and your communication whenever it comes to doing strategy roles. Other than this, you also have to know a lot of strategy frameworks,
Okay.
right? How to use, let us say, Porter Five Forces, how to
Mhm.
use SWOT, how to use various, you do a lot of prioritization between various options, various product features, various marketing strategies or tactics, right? So you have to really know prioritization frameworks, how to
Okay.
do this prioritization. Other than this, another important thing which I feel is scenario planning. You have to have scenarios for various options of strategy. Okay,
Mhm.
if you do this, what will happen? If you do second, what will happen? If you do third thing, what will happen? And one very important, which I'm just realizing now, the ability to connect the dots.
Yeah.
Because strategy is all about, getting insights from data, from customers, from various stakeholders, combining it all together, converting it into meaningful insights, and then also not to lose the big picture. What I have seen that people do inciting job very well, but they are not able to connect the dots, or they are not able to look at the future, right? So for strategy professionals, I think one eye on current and one eye on future, and then how to combine. You were also asking about how to create balance, but I'm saying that strategy professionals have to have this art because not many other professionals have it. That is the reason this role is growing, right? So strategy professionals have to have this skill sets. So I think I talked about 4 or 5 skill sets. There could be many more, but I think these are the important ones which are coming in my mind right now.
Wonderful. Well, this is really important and really useful, what you have shared, Sandeep. Now, just out of context, question which is just coming to my mind, Sandeep. Uh, what if our Prime Minister Modi selects you as a CSO for this country, right? So, what will be your priority and how you will navigate your way? You know, India is a big country, right?
Fantastic question. I never thought about it. But see, I think for any strategy role, even if it is for our country, I think first we have to understand what is the vision of country. I think good part is that now we have a vision. By 2047, we want to become a developed nation.
Yeah.
And in fact, I see this beautiful cascading of this broader vision. Like recently, I was seeing when Delhi Chief Minister was taking oath, in the background, it was written that Viksit Delhi, Viksit
Okay.
Delhi.
Okay.
Viksit Delhi. And every minister of Delhi was also talking about Viksit Delhi, right? So I think vision is very clear. So every strategy professional, if vision is not clear, this is something which you will, want to
Mm,
first of all pick up and do it. So I think for our country, vision is very
mm,
clear. And second thing is for making any initiative, you need problems and challenges, right? So, and being a citizen of this country, I know many challenges we are facing on daily basis. We have air pollution as a challenge. We have sustainable life as a challenge. We have, let us say, education as a challenge.
mm,
Jobs, enough jobs for youth as a
yeah.
challenge. Huge population. So while we keep talking about population as a dividend, but if these people are not educated, not
Employed.
nurtured
Yeah.
well, not getting nutritious food,
Yeah.
their brain is of no use, right? So ensuring that okay, these people are more than a labor. I mean, if
Yeah.
these people cannot create any innovation or IP, how we are going to grow as a nation? So I think problems are also clear. So if I happen to get this role, I think as a citizen of this country, vision and challenges are clear. I will quickly, try to see how to prioritize which challenge, and all of these challenges will have trickling effect as well. If you solve one challenge, chances are three, four, five more you may be able to solve. So I
Yeah.
think prioritization would be the next step, and then of course detailing it, understanding it, and then as I said, for execution you need collaboration. So creating some structure where let us say we can collaborate with. So for example, recently I was there in Mahakumbh. Usually you don't see in government efforts. What actually lacks is the execution and collaboration between different functions of the
Different sector. Yeah.
governmental
Yeah.
organizations. But we saw two instances.
Okay.
One was during G20. It was a flawless execution
Yeah.
where various states, central governments, and authorities were involved, and execution was flawless. Second of it, of course, there were some issues, one or two you talked about, but if you
Yeah.
really look at Mahakumbh as an event, I think more than a dozen organizations involved and flawless execution. And this is what even CM Yogi was also talking about in his concluding remarks. So I think as in country, we are reaching there as well. It is just that we need to teach it to each and every part of the, functions of different governmental organizations, either in center or state.
Wonderful, Sandeep. And we, all of us, as a citizen of this great country, look forward to our nation getting developed, overcoming all these obstacles or the challenges all of us are facing. And definitely, the aim of this podcast, ZYNC Podcast, zooming in youth, network, and careers, is the rural youth, specifically the ones who are coming from the smaller towns and cities and trying to make big in their careers. And definitely, they will be the ones who will be propelling the country forward for sure. And I'm really happy. We are towards the now end of this session,
Yeah,
Sandeep.
so for a bright future career. So I think since we were discussing about strategy, so I think first thing is that if they really want to prepare for strategy role, then they have to develop their thinking, thought process, strategic thinking, critical thinking, design thinking in that manner. For that, college education wouldn't be sufficient, right? So they have to read a lot of books. They have to learn a lot of frameworks, and a lot of this is available on internet these days. This is one. Second thing is strategy as a profession is growing. More and more companies are going to have this role. And more functions also are going to have this role in the organization. So they can definitely look up to this as a great career opportunity. But again, as I said, we mentioned about 4 or 5 skills. So they have to develop. the third thing is basically, understanding the nuances of the industry where they are looking for opportunities, how strategy
Mhm.
plays there, and how things work there.
Great, Sandeep. It's been a really great time spent you. A lot of immenseful learnings which you have shared today. Once more, a grateful thanks to you for your time. This early Sunday morning, I believe I'll have to change the name of my podcast to Sunday 7 a.m. show. Because that is where we are probably, or either in the late in the nights, we are able to record the new sessions, right? So thanks a lot for your time, Sandeep. It means a lot to me as well as to all the audience who will be hearing you and getting a lot of useful knowledge for their careers, and it will definitely shape many of them. Thanks a lot, Sandeep.
Yeah, so no, I think thanks to you as well for inviting me because first of all, I love sharing what I know with youth because if you share it with certain people at the right age and right time, chances are they can use it. So thank you so much for
Absolutely.
inviting me for this podcast. So this is one thing. Second thing is, it's very difficult to get time. And do these things because these things also require some sort of preparation. You will be doing some preparation, I will be doing some
Yeah,
preparation. So and so that's why Monday mornings and early mornings are good because you can also concentrate
absolutely.
them. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for arranging this conversation so early in the morning as well. So and look forward. So I'll definitely look at our third interaction. Maybe we'll pick up something which you hear from your audience as an interesting topic, and hopefully if I can talk about it, we'll again collaborate. So once again, thank you so much, and I really enjoyed having this conversation with you.